Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. Make sure you stick around. We got some really important stuff here. Bitcoin monthly return percentage, crypto market overview, of course, just kind of understanding fear and greed index and how altcoin season index is looking, more specifically ETF net outflow. Furthermore too, I think the important thing to recognize here as well would be this guy right here with our performing coins versus Bitcoin. Basically, the coins we're going to be looking at here today, how well are they doing versus Bitcoin? These are all things we're going to take a look at here. So hope you stick around and learn as much as you can. If you could, please hit the like button, comment below if you get a chance. Make sure you obviously check out BitUnix too, folks. They have some new deposit reward bonuses, plus first time trading rewards. So if you're a new trader, check them out. No KYC or VPN required. Let's start with the crypto market overview here, just kind of starting with the baseline. First of all, fear and greed index looking good. That's actually perfect. We like to see it be in the 50s based on the simple fact that the price action for Bitcoin is mostly going sideways and a little bit down. But when the fear and greed index comes down faster than the price of Bitcoin, it's actually a good sign because people will start to buy more. People are starting to be like worried that, hey, 110, 115,000 isn't going to be something I can offer, or that will be offered eventually soon. I got to get in, trying to FOMO in, if you will. Altcoin season index also at 43. Is extremely important. We can see we're still maintaining a nice average here of 1.4 to 1.5 trillion in basically altcoin season market cap. That's a good thing here, right? Overall, these coins are outperforming, doing very well, and we're going to be covering a majority of those too as well. But the key takeaway here is that this staying in the upper 30s to mid 40s is a super important factor for us. And take it from me, after analyzing these things year over year, I can tell you this is a very positive sign, still a good early sign for altcoins. There's still a lot of strength in the altcoin market. Let's look here next at just this quick little chart here, kind of giving you perspective of what coins in a bigger picture here, broader perspective, are performing better than Bitcoin in the last couple of days. Okay, now simply put, these yellow lines on each chart is essentially a key level resistance that was a previous support level or previous resistance turn support. In other words, we got 115,300 for Bitcoin. That level held like a champ, rejected the price action pretty significant. ETH broke through its resistance, and so did XRP. Solana did too, but it's kind of performing funky. And then SUI, of course, hanging on, and the sidelines are not quite performing very well. So not the greatest activity there, but some important stuff to recognize. And when we look at Bitcoin monthly return percentage, this is something I need to kind of recognize too and kind of touch on. First of all, August is statistically, outside of once every 4 years, which this is the 4th year, by the way, we do poorly. In other words, Bitcoin does well in 2013, 2017, 2021, and so far off to a rough start in 2025. But every 4 years, hypothetically, we see a good month from August. However, every single other year in the month of August has been pretty poor. So statistically, I've done the math with August and September combined. We're looking at a 66% probability of pullback or red months per month. Okay, so I would say we have a 1 in 3 chance of a good month this month and a 1 in 3 chance of a good month next month. So just some statistical odds for you. It doesn't mean we're just gonna go up or down because of it. It's just historically certain months do better for Bitcoin, and in turn altcoins to follow. All right. Having said that though, when we take a look at Bitcoin, let's go ahead and jump into the backend data, kind of see where we're at, kind of set the baseline here of liquidation for Bitcoin. And when we look at the backend data here for Bitcoin, we want to recognize previously, or just in general, we're still in a macro bullish type of flag pattern. These are generally construed as a positive. They usually retest their local highs as new lows. And 112,000, in case you didn't notice or know this, was a previous all-time high for Bitcoin, where we got rejected out a few times. If you see here, 112,000, where the price pulled back, inevitably broke through and is now retesting that level. Super common before large movements for those levels to be retested. That's how price discovery works. You're commonly going to retest your previous high before the price goes any higher. All that being said, when we look here, we can see more bids than asks in the market here, and we can also see more shorts than longs for high leverage traders or top traders. These are basically large position size traders. So there's kind of a conflict there. When we have those two things conversely responding, it shows we're at this point of contention and we're at this heavy support or potential area of support. I want to emphasize that because we could still go lower, but I think 110 to 112 is more likely than not going to be our support level. Let's talk about it. First of all, this is open interest on the right, and these two areas are heavy accumulations, roughly 112 to 110 is that range. Two areas of support at roughly 110 and 112 based on open interest. We can see, however, liquidation delta is still quite high. That is what, 14 billion to the downside. And if we look at what this is last 1 month's worth of liquidation, let's actually look at the last 7 days and see where we're at here. If we look at the last 7 days of liquidation, we can recognize that we are in what? Yeah, there's that area of support, 110 to 112, but also 116 to 120 is that range. So we got more liquidation to the upside than the downside. That could incentivize the whales to push higher and to get us into a manipulative power of 3 trade setup. Let me just discuss that really quick with you so we can kind of preface. If you're not familiar with my Discord, or if you're not in the Discord, I would recommend joining. It's link down below for that. But we have the power of 3 trade setup here as far as like just kind of an example of how that works. And if you see here, the price usually works itself into an accumulation phase, which we saw previously. That was our bullish rectangle. Price breaks down here, now trapping late shorts. We're in a manipulation phase here right now. The last thing would be an expansive phase where the price action pushes and breaks through that resistance and continues to progress higher. I'm willing to speculate that we're in a position like that right now, where we had our accumulation phase, trapping late shorts, and we're going to get the face melting series here soon. So it's pretty common. Bitcoin has had a lot of these little microstructures. This is more of a macro structure. Not a guarantee, but it makes sense for price discovery, basically bouncing off our local high as a new low. Once more, I hope I'm wrong. We actually get the price to go lower so I can get in at a better price point for a long position on Bitcoin. But I mostly hope I'm right so we can all kind of benefit from that. Regardless of right or wrong, the consensus here is that we're starting to squeeze, starting to compress between all moving averages. We're also in a position right now where we're sub 20 on the MFI. That's the money flow index. And last time we hit the money flow index here at that level, the price action responded quite strong. And we can see this was what happened as a result of a high money flow index to the downside. It's just it's too much selling pressure. It's too much of an overextension. And then there's just a tremendous amount of buying pressure to follow. Now, it could still go down, don't get me wrong, but the odds of success and taking a long right now are statistically slightly higher than taking a short at this point. It sucks being a late short and it sucks being a late long, so try not to be either. At this point, if you're considering a long, you're being an early long. And if you're considering a short, you're going to be a late short. And most late shorts get punished. At least yesterday they were. And we'll see here today if that continues. All that being said, 4-hour time frame shows that we've definitely diverged to the lower downside here. We've got a lot of resistance above us, 115.5 to be specific. That was our previous low. And then obviously we got a little bit of fair value gap left down as low as 111.5. So all in all, I still think we're going to pivot and bounce here soon. We could actually be in the beginning of a double bottom. There's a lot of little microstructures we can kind of talk about, but the truth is, we have some bigger picture stuff that's adding up that just seems too good to be true, that it would be weird if the price just massively dumped here. It would require a fundamental catalyst for that to happen. Okay, cool. So that's Bitcoin. Let's take a look here at ETH. Kind of move on here and make this quick for you. So taking a quick look here at Ethereum, the backend structure. If I recall correctly, we have a lot of open interest at 3560, which is this white bar here. So yeah, 3560 basically implies local support for ETH. The odds of the price going higher from here is greater based on that number. However, there's a lot of open interest above too. So that's when things get kind of weird, when you're kind of stuck in a range. We're starting to see this compression and these tighter Bollinger Bands, so to speak. And when that happens, breakouts occur. Now, I'm willing to speculate we're going to go more higher than lower based on that metric alone and how much better Ethereum is performing versus Bitcoin recently. So there's that too. If we take a look at liquidation delta, we want to recognize 6 billion in short liquidation delta here recently. And if we look at the last 7 days, we can see once more a lot more liquidation above the price, 37.50 to 3900 versus that small chunk at 33. Okay, so a lot more incentive for the price to go higher than lower. And obviously, if we take a look at these smaller timeframes here, and you compare this with Bitcoin, you can see a distinct difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin as far as breaking through its resistance level and retesting that as a new support. Bitcoin still has yet to break through its resistance, so this kind of implies that Ethereum is moving a lot better than Bitcoin. And in case you didn't notice this, and if you've been living under a rock, maybe haven't been trading altcoins for a while or much at all, you need to understand that altcoins that perform better than Bitcoin are generally the ones you want to take longs with when Bitcoin is pulling back, okay? Because they're more likely to recover and respond quickly. Right here, we got our yellow line. That's basically our support level. Close above 3,600 today. We're in pretty good shape to see further upside. While we are in a descending trend still, it's a short-term descending trend. I think the likelihood of breaking through that is higher. We have more confirming factors here. Stochastic swinging up, money flow index right there with the RSI and the RSI above 50. Those are generally favorable signs. While we're still below our moving average, yes, that kind of reinforces that descending trend. We're still in pretty decent shape with a lot of other confirming factors. So pending Bitcoin doesn't take a nosedive here soon, we're in pretty good shape to see this happen, or more likelihood of seeing further upside than downside for Ethereum. Now, when we look at the 4-hour time frame, we're starting to see compression here too. We're starting to see being above and below specific moving averages here, which is generally favorable, but also not great, right? Most 4-hour timeframes look terrible right now. And usually when most 4-hour timeframes look terrible, that's when you want to buy. That's how the structure's been the last few weeks. It's been one of those inverse situations where as soon as you get these sell signals, you should probably consider buying. That's roughly where we're at right now. So be cautious and careful if you do take a trade with ETH, but just note that it's looking stronger than Bitcoin. That's a very good start. Looking here at Solana, we're in a descending trend here. We can recognize we're starting to compress on the 4-hour time frame in this range between 162 and 170. If we zoom out, 162 is that heavy area of open interest and or a point of control here locally. Actually not locally, but ever since like the first week of July. So roughly the last 1 month's worth of trading, we can see that point of control there just below the price action at 162. See how I got right there. So let's take a look here. Where are we at with the back-end data? So first and foremost with Solana, 168 is that local resistance. So once more, closing above 168 would be a kind of a go signal. And when I say closing above, people don't understand a lot, so I'll clarify. We need to close above 168 on the daily time frame. That shows a 24-hour period of controlling the price action above that level. So we want to see 168 or higher on the daily candle. Liquidation delta is still to the downside. We look here at the last 7 days. Let's go ahead and check that first. Last 7 days worth of trading, we can recognize here that there is still some liquidation down below as 155 upwards of 161. 175 is that upper range though, so if we do end up pushing above, we close above 168, 175 would be a solid consideration for a long target. Let's go ahead and look at SUI next here. Now that we understand kind of where that's at, SUI is one of those underperformers, but also holding below all these resistances. I discussed this yesterday that 362 is a solid resistance level for multiple reasons. And those multiple reasons are pretty straightforward. It's called confluence. So if you're new to the channel, maybe you're new to confirming factors, when you have a lot of different things kind of all in the same area, it kind of reinforces resistance or support. So 362 is that area of resistance for us here on this coin. And that basically just implies that we're in a position right now where taking a long right now would be a bad idea. Generally construed as a bad idea. Now we're still establishing higher lows for the moment, so there's that. And of course, with Bitcoin recovering, if it does, there's a decent chance SUI will too. But just know this is an area of resistance at 362, so it's generally best to wait to trade when a coin is below that range. Take a look here at the open interest for SUI. Not a whole heck of a lot, but 350 is that current open interest range, and that is once more above the price, reinforcing resistance. Liquidation short delta is to the downside, and we have a lot more liquidation lower. So, I'm not hitting on SUI at all, but it doesn't look like a very optimal situation until we break above all these moving averages and get back up over that resistance range of 350 to roughly 360. Then I don't have any confidence in taking a trade with this coin. We're still respecting the descending trend too, so the trend is down, generally not a trend you want to trade against. Okay. Let's take a look at XRP and see what's going on. This one I have a little bit more faith in. In fact, we actually have a long position open at 298. And the whole concept here is that there's a lot of confluence at 293 based on open interest. Let's go ahead and let me show you what I mean by that. First of all, this heavy concentration here, that is a super amount of support that basically was, it's going to be heavily guarded because previously there was a lot of buying pressure at 290 to 293. In that range, as they accumulated, the price went higher. So every time the price comes into that range, there's more and more buying pressure at the low 290s. So everybody's buying to 280 to 290s, and we see the most amount of open interest, or essentially the volume support, is at 293. We can also see here as well that liquidation short and long delta is starting to compress. This implies a trend reversal. Oftentimes in descending trends, you will see that start to shift momentum based on the fact that for lack of better terms, the bulls and the bears are trying to fight it out right now, and the bears are slowly losing, okay, because more people are buying. Let's take a look at the last 7 days of open interest and just call it a day here for you folks. And we want to just double check here too and see there is more open interest, more liquidation between 311 and roughly 330 as a rough estimate there above the price, with very little left below. So there's less manipulation to occur to the downside and more to occur to the upside. So just note that market makers really love trapping late shorts, which they probably did in the sub 290 range. So daily time frame, just to clarify here, we're also testing our descending trend line. We're above the 50, but below the 20-day SMA, so we're starting to compress. And overall, we're still over 50 on the RSI, stochastic swinging up, and MACD is slowly starting to discontinue its divergence. So these are all very positive signs. While they're not like super stark, amazing, like, hey, we're gonna go to the metaphorical moon tomorrow. Well, this just really, the legitimacy here is that majority of signs are pointing up, and it's just kind of a statistical favorability of further upside. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at there. ETH and XRP are like kind of the golden, the shining stars today. We want to see how SUI can reclaim its resistance, and Solana, it's kind of a wild card. Too many conflicting factors for me to want to trade that coin today. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Why don't you comment below? Let me know your thoughts. Look forward to working with you. Make sure you check out BitUnix too, folks. Awesome deposit reward bonus going on this month, as well as a first trade bonus too. So if you're a new user, no KYC or VPN, these guys are fantastic. Be sure to check them out. I look forward to working with you though. Have a good rest of the day. We'll see you the next one. Take care.